My friend and I were having a discussion about some of the dumbest character builds we've ever seen, with people taking 5 or 6 different classes, and just how forgiving Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition can be when building a character versus D&D 3rd edition. And so I thought, why not just create the dumbest D&D character we can and take all the classes? Could we even make it work while missing out on ASIs and extra attack, and what would it look like? Should it play like a caster, a tank, or a skirmisher? So I'd like to introduce you to the dumbest Dungeons & Dragons character of all time, Timmy, the fighter, ranger, warlock, monk, wizard, sorcerer, barbarian, cleric, bard, druid, paladin, rogue. Let's have a little fun with this thing. But first, our golden rule: we must take a new class every level until we've taken at least one level in every class. So no fighter 5 builds to start out with. The first thing we need to do is figure out the race and stats, because the multiclassing rules state that you must meet the minimum stat requirements of every class you take when multiclassing in 5th edition, even the one you start with. And sliding over to the multiclass stat requirements page on 163 in the player's handbook, we see that we will need at least a 13 in every stat except for Constitution, which is great because, you know, everyone knows Constitution is the best dump stat when making a new character. So what race is going to give us the best shot at not being totally useless? That's right, the good old-fashioned and boring human. I know, but the +1 to all stats is just too good to pass up, even for the mountain dwarf. So now that we've settled on human, let's get some point buy going to see what we can come up with. Since we're going to go with a more physical combat-oriented character, as we won't be able to get those really high-level spell slots, or at least access to those high-level spells, let's pump up our strength and dex to 13, and we might as well get our wisdom and charisma to 13 too. We'll take our intelligence to 12, and our constitution ends up being at a whopping 11. With our human ability bonuses, we end up with some pretty solid scores of 14 in strength, dex, wisdom, charisma, a 13 in intelligence, so we can meet those wizard requirements, and we still manage to grab a +1 mod with our constitution with a score of 12. And now we're on to the fun part, figuring out when to take each class. We know we're going to be a combat-oriented character, and we're going to be missing out on extra attack until almost level 20. So we're going to start out with the fighter. The fighter at level 1 gives us the opportunity to pick up 2-weapon fighting for our fighting style, so we can get a little extra +2 static damage to our second weapon. And it gives us the best starting hit dice, which is maximized at level 1 after the Barbarian. Also, Second Wind will help us stay up in the earlier levels while we snag the most armor and weapon proficiencies we can. And we might as well load up with our chainmail from our starting equipment options, as wearing heavy armor doesn't affect us if we use light finessable weapons later. And we're going to go with full short swords with a pair of throwing axes. Moving on to level 2, we need a new class, so why not go ahead and take our level of Rogue? This will give us expertise, sneak attack, and thieves' cant. Sneak attack is obviously the biggie here, and as a pair of reminders, 1, we can trigger our sneak attack once a turn, so with our 2 short swords, even if the first misses, we can grab the extra d6 on the second attack, and we can in fact also get sneak attack damage when throwing our hand axes, and yes, that has been in fact confirmed by the Dungeons & Dragons team, though you almost will never actually try to do that, but you know, we can, so there's that. Okay, for our third class, we're going to go with Warlock, specifically the Hexblade Warlock. This will give us access to a pair of cantrips, so we'll grab Booming Blade and Toll the Dead, a pair of known Warlock spells, so we'll take Hellish Rebuke and Hex, and its Hexblade's Curse allows us to fish for crits a bit better when we snag Barbarian later, as it's not a spell, so it won't be hindered by raging. And we can start throwing some extra damage while life leeching just a tiny bit. Hex Warrior is just a dead skill for us, and as a final note, we get Pact Magic from Warlock, which is unique to the Warlock, and it will not be affected by multiclassing spell casting in that table for wizards, sorcerers, druids, etc. At level 4, we're going to go full Rage Boy and take a level in Barbarian. Sadly, as we can only take 1 level in Barbarian at this point, we won't be able to recklessly attack. But here's a little rules as written cheese that will be sure to piss your dungeon masters off. The bonus damage a Barbarian gets while raging simply requires a melee attack made with your strength modifier, and the rogue sneak attack only requires that the weapon be a ranged or finesse weapon. So with our short swords, we can make melee attacks attacks with our strength modifier, and because they have the finesse property on our weapon, we still get to sneak attack. Also, we'll certainly enjoy the resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage while raging, and though unarmored defense won't actually do anything for us, and obviously while raging we won't be able to cast any spells. But beyond that, our little Timmy character is pretty damn formidable, and still he should be able to keep pace with any of the other party members at this point. Okay, at level 5, we're going to go with Cleric and grab the Death Domain. This will allow us to go ahead and snag Chill Touch, gives us access to Healing Word for additional party support, and it will synergize well with our Warlock Toll the Dead spell, allowing us to target 2 separate enemies for 2d8 or potentially 2d12 each. And being able to throw 4d12 damage at 60 feet with a cantrip gives us a pretty solid ranged option in the right situations, with Chill Touch to back us up against undead, not to mention inflict wounds for a potential 60, 10 plus any hex and sneak damage. We're rounding out our little Timmy pretty well, trying to make up for the lack of ASIs and extra attack. Okay, let's jump over to level 6 with the Sorcerer. But first, it's sponsor time because we have some free goodies to give out that I'm really excited about. Today's video is brought to you by Deck of Many. Deck of Many makes some killer gaming accessories for your table that just make your games run smoother with their monster decks for dungeon masters and their beautiful spell decks for players, including their pretty cool as hell lenticular decks, which are now available for pre-order if you missed the original Kickstarter. But today we've got something really cool with a free download for everyone on their new campaign, Humblewood. Humblewood is a charming world where you can dive into an imaginative and colorful world of birdfolk, from the Strig to raptors, with new class options, spells, monsters to fight, and a complete adventure for DMs and players to experience the wood for the first time. I'll throw a link down below for you guys to go and snag your free copy. Thank you, Deck of Many, for being a part of the Taking 20 team. So as mentioned, at level 6, we're going to take Sorcerer with Shadow Magic as our Sorceress origin. We'll snag 4 more cantrips. With so many damaging cantrips at our disposal already, we'll grab Ray of Frost just in case we need to slow someone down, True Strike to start off an ambush with advantage, Control Flames, and Message for some versatility. And for our 2 level 1 spells, we'll go with Shield and Absorb Elements, both solid reaction spells since we'll be stretched already for action economy, and most of the time we will be up in melee combat. Again, these will only be good when we're not raging, but for times when we're out of rages or trying to conserve them, this will give us some added defense. But the main reason we're taking Shadow Magic is for the 120 feet of dark vision to compensate for our little Timmy being a pathetic human. At level 7, we really need to grab another full caster class, as that will unlock an additional 3 spell slots for us. So between the Bard and the Druid, we'll go with the Bard. With us running out of cantrips to even really learn at this point, we'll snag Mage Hand and Minor Illusion, and for our level 1 spells, we'll take Unseen Servant, Fairy Fire, Featherfall, and Illusory Script. Beyond that, we now have a pair of level 2 spell slots if we want to cast some of our spells at a higher level, and of course some inspiration dice to hand out to the party. Sticking with spellcasters, at level 8, we'll go ahead and take that level in Druid. We get a cool little cantrip attack here called Primal Savagery, which, while it won't stack with sneak attack, can't be used while raging and won't allow us to make an attack with our second weapon while 2-weapon fighting. It will give us the chance to throw 2d10 damage if we are planning on using our bonus action for something else, like casting Healing Word or Hex, or activating our Hexblade's Curse. And when we hit level 11, it'll climb to a 3d10. But beyond that, we really only pick up Druidic and climb 1 more rank in our spellcasting, adding a 3rd level 2 slot. So at level 9, the best logical decision is to go ahead and grab our last full spellcaster class with Wizard to pick up 2 level 3 spell slots and grab a spellbook. For our last 3 cantrips, we have only a few to even pick from, but we'll grab a few more situational spells with Mold Earth, Friends, and Shape Water. And for our 2 level 1 starting spells, we'll snag Jump and Expeditious Retreat. Beyond that, we're pretty tapped out on new spells and abilities, as our Arcane Recovery really won't do a whole lot for us at this point. All right, level 10 is all Paladin. This is almost a dead class for us at this point, though. We're really only getting 5 points of Lay on Hands for emergencies, and Divine Sense is very situational. And the same thing can be said for level 11, where we'll grab our Ranger dip. Nothing really meaty here with Favored Enemy and Natural Explorer, with both being extremely situational at best after considering your party might already have these areas covered in some form or fashion. Though ironically, even though both the Paladin and Ranger don't receive spells until level 2 for each class, because of the way that we calculate our multi-class spell slots, we will in fact bump up one more tier for our total spellcasting level and snag one more level 3 spell slot. And so that leaves us with our absolutely worst one-level dip class with the Monk. With only one level, we get Unarmored Defense and Martial Arts, both of which are completely dead abilities for us, as the extra Unarmed Strike takes up our bonus action that we're using to attack anyway, and our Strength and Dex mods are identical, as well as Unarmored Defense not stacking with the Barbarian, and it will actually lower our AC if we dump our physical armor, which is hopefully either a half plate or breastplate by level 12. And no, that's not me just hating on monks, okay guys, that's just math. You can't argue with math. And so with that, we have now taken every class in the game by level 12. We have our very own special little Timmy. Now the question is, what should we take next? Should we go with more caster classes to try to pick up higher level spells? Or should we go with something more suited to our physical combatant? I think the easiest way to look at it is what spells at level 2 or 3 would make it worth focusing more on spellcasting? And the answer is none of them. The best spells to make your melee combatant more viable and dangerous are all concentration spells. Haste, Invisibility, Elemental Weapon, Barkskin, Blur, and on, all need you to be able to take a hit and hold on to the spell. And with our very meager Constitution score, it just won't be worth it for Timmy to forego extra attack that the melee classes offer. For our choice, we're going to go with the best of both worlds, and at level 13, we're going to go back and take Paladin. Because the Paladin and Fighter are so close in their physical abilities, but the Paladin can make significantly better use of all the higher level spell slots that we've racked up so far, with no actual level 2 and level 3 spells to use them on, it just outshines the Fighter a bit on burst damage when we start using those accumulated slots to smite. Additionally, if we happen to be raging, we won't get locked out of using those spell slots for extra damage like we would if we tried to use them to actually just cast something. So at level 13, we pick up Smite and a second fighting style, which we'll take Defense with to increase our AC by 1. At level 14, we're able to take our third Paladin level and grab our Oath as well as a 4th level spell slot. There are of course a lot of ways that we can go with our Oath, but for Timmy, we're going to go with the Oath of Redemption. The main reason we're going with this Oath is our once per short rest Channel Divinity, Rebuke the Violent. This is mostly our bomb for any boss fight. If the boss can hit someone for 56 damage on a crit, we can spend a reaction to have them take 56 damage right back, or at a minimum 28 if they save, and that is an absolute bomb for the cost of, again, a reaction. Level 15 will give us our first ASI, which honestly could go one of 5 ways. We could take the +2 to either Strength, Dexterity, or Constitution, or we could grab either the Lucky Feat for a few rerolls, or take the Warcaster ability. The reason Warcaster is so interesting here is not just for the somatic spellcasting advantage, or the advantage to maintain a spell like Bless, but also for the ability to cast spells at someone when they provoke. And with our Druid spell of Primal Savagery, that can turn into a solid 3d10 plus any hex damage or Hunter's Mark damage. Not insignificant for a mere reaction when trying to prevent a foe from moving towards the squishies in the back. And on a crit, it's an insane potential for 8d10 at level 17 for a reaction. Or alternatively, this could go off for a Booming Blade, which is a nice, neat little trick. Level 16 will finally give us our extra attack class feature, which is only a meager, 9 levels after the rest of our party, and 5 levels after straight fighters grab their second extra attack. And it will also give us access to our first set of level 2 spells for the Paladin, which, to be frank, are all incredibly mediocre. But that also qualifies us for the 8th level spellcaster, so we do grab another level 4 spell slot. For levels 17 and 18, we're going to go back to the Fighter to pick up Action Surge and our Martial Archetype Champion. This allows us to be making 3 attacks in a round, critting 10% of the dice rolls, hunting down those crits with a pair of massive smites. And for our final 2 levels, we'll take a 2nd and 3rd level of Rogue, just to grab another sneak attack dice and assassinate for fun with our Assassin archetype, along with Cunning Action. So, is the character dumb? Absolutely. I'm not even going to try to begin to justify it roleplay-wise on how it's a Warlock, Monk, Druid, Paladin, Ranger, Barbarian with the spell book, amongst other things, that goes back to being a Paladin for a bit before deciding to become an assassin. It's terrible. It's awful. But is it any good? I think that it has its swings in efficiency. For the first 5 to 6 levels, it's more than fine. It actually probably a bit in front of the curve on power level with the rest of your party. But as you move to the mid game, you start taking those dead levels, and it's probably not going to be very fun to play because it just doesn't get much beyond spell slots, and it can't really take advantage of any of its class abilities that it just won't use. So it'll feel like all your character is doing is getting a little more life each level. However, it starts to pick back up in the later levels once you start taking more Paladin, and by the end game, it's just average. Yes, our little Timmy won't be anywhere near the power level of a level 20 Wizard or Barbarian, but he's certainly capable of throwing out damage with all the Smite spell slots, along with the 2d6 sneak attack plus Hex or Hunter's Mark, all while critting on 19 to 20 with Champion, and if he manages to land a blow on the first round of combat against a boss that hasn't gone yet, he'll have advantage with 3 attacks and a good chance at a crit to double down on a smite and roll all of his dice twice. And in the same turn, he can use his reaction to reflect either half or 100% of the boss's damage for a crazy amount of burst to start a fight. So there we have it, an actually usable character that takes every class in the game, which I think shows you just how forgiving Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is when making a character. Okay, now I want to issue a little challenge. 1, tell me how you guys would have built the character with the remaining 8 levels. Do you think you have a better answer other than Paladin 5, Fighter 3, Rogue 3? And 2, what is the dumbest multiclass you or your friends have tried to play in Dungeons & Dragons? I don't care if it's 5th edition, 3.5, Pathfinder, whatever. I want to hear about those god-awful characters. If you guys want to download your own form-fillable sheets for little Timmy, I'll be making every level from level 1 to 20 available for all of my patrons, even for those of you guys who are on the $1 tier over at welcomeadventures.com. So huge shout out to all of you amazing people who've jumped on to become an adventurer. If you like what I do here and you want to support more content like this, welcomeadventures.com is a great way to support the channel while picking up a few additional rewards. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I would love to have you subscribe. Every week I put out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button right there down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.